right, y'all. Peace, peace, peace. Let me see. Make sure y'all can hear me. Let me go back. Press one if y'all can hear me as well as see the screen. Trying to do this real quick build. I was just talking to a Aborigine not too long ago. When I came into the house, someone told me to do some. I was doing some research, and I just was looking up a couple articles, and I ran across a few things that just I don't know, just can kind of compel me just to make this video real quick. I'm gonna just try to do a real quick build because I gotta get up early in the morning tomorrow. But yeah, let's do this real quick. Let's do this. I can press one line. Shout out to room. Shout out to all the Aborigines. Definitely shout out to y'all. I'm just gonna get through this. It's a lot of reading. I mean, it's not a lot, but it's like it's a never-ending page. I just went over a little bit of it. All right, so pretty much just say history of Massachusetts.org. All right, some of the stuff that I'm gonna be reading in here probably gonna be kind of familiar with some of the other research that we have done as far as Massachusetts, but I'll read through this. Yeah, I was definitely like when I read through this the first time, it had a lot. Like even when you look up like the Salem witch trials, them are Indians, man. You know what I'm saying? Them are Indians. All of them is Indians. If they not Europeans, then they was Indians. When you read about the Salem witch trial, these people not Europeans. Yeah, that's us. Then you know what I'm saying? They was burning people at the stake. A lot of them was female. What they was calling them? They was calling them not sachems, not Sycamore. Matter of fact, Sycamore. They was calling some of the women had the title of Sycamores, and you'll see like when you read. When you read into the Salem witch hunt, you'll see that some of the women that was supposedly burnt at the stake will had the title of Sycamore. But nonetheless, that's a whole nother thing, though. But yeah, check this site out. You'll have some interesting history called History of Massachusetts blog. Now I went here before, but I ran across this article right here, and I thought this was interesting. Hold on for 1 second. The fuck? All right. All right, my bad. Sometimes this should be acting funny. All right, let's get with this. All right, so Native American and the Revolutionary War. So say many Native American tribes fought in the Revolutionary War. The majority of these tribes fought for the British, but a few fought for Americans. Many of these tribes remained neutral in the early phases of the war, but when some of them came under attack by American militias, they decided to join the British. Now remember, even when we learn about the Revolutionary War, who the first person they tell you got killed in the Revolutionary War? Crispin Attucks. He the first person, or the reason why. When you look up Crispin Attucks, they tell you that he was Aborigine. Okay, now I done did some videos on this, but this gonna take us into some other things as well. It's gonna take us into some of the history of some of these other tribes that was on the southeast, um, northeast seaboard, or what we call Terra Nova or North America. All right, so it's gonna take us into a little bit of that too. So let me just continue. All right. So it said other tribes joined the British and hoped that if the British won, they will put a stop to colonial expansion in the West, as they have done with the Royal Proclamation in 1763. The following list is the various tribes who fought in the Revolutionary War. All right. Now remember, y'all, when you hear about the Revolutionary War, who was the first person they tell you got killed? Crispin Attucks, okay? Yo, let's do this. All right, so the Wabanaki. All right. Um, the Wabanaki Confederacy. The Wabanaki Confederacy was an alliance of 5 northern tribes of the Pimbakat, the Malsit, the Pasa. I can't pronounce that, y'all. Listen, this right here. Y'all see these tribes. I never even heard of these. I heard of the Abenaki, but this is the Wabanaki. Okay. And this is Micmac. I heard of the Micmac before. It say as a whole, the tribe of the Wabanaki Confederacy was reluctant to join the war as some members of various tribes did not take part in a few engagements. According to Colin G. Calloway in his book, The American Revolutionary in Indian Country. All right. Now remember, that Chris McAdams was the first man that got killed in the Revolutionary War. And then he was in Massachusetts as well. When you look up his history, you're going to find out the Indian. Okay, but they're going to try to say, oh, he was an African American and an Indian. You understand what I'm saying? Because, like I said, what they doing is, where you see Christianity at is where you see the original Indians at. Now, the original Indians, you see, I mean, the Mongoloids don't worship Christianity like some of the radicals that we got in the so-called black or colored or Negro community. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know how hard we go with Christianity. Okay, check it out. It's in Maine, Nova Scotia, the Pasa I can't pronounce that. The Micmac and this tribe right here was reluctant to become involved in a war that had little to offer them. Massachusetts passed a resolution of July 1776 that 500 Micmac Indians employed service. Now this is the Massat chiefs Ambrose Saint Alban and Pierre Toma sometimes spoke as if they was engaged in a common cause to protect their land and liberties, but Eastern Indians often defiantly avoided the belligerent recruiting effort of delegates who attended the Treaty of Watertown. That's interesting. 1776 exceeded their authority and committed to the tribes to the American cause. The tribe split as a British power, and the British goods exerted increasing influence. About 100 principal of the Malmic and the Malisat, and this one right here, the Passamaquoddy, I guess that's how you pronounce it, tribe took an oath of allegiance to King George. Now we know King George was, say, between September 1778 and to January 1779. It say with Chief Arnon Hardy in our cause, a company in the Penobscot served in the United States and figured prominently in the actions of the Penobscot in 1779. A dozen of pig wackets from Western Maine petitioned Massachusetts for permission to enlist. So check this out. So we got some images too. This is what really kind of wanted me to make the video. All right, so say the Malisat was a tribe with a population of 700 that lived in Maine, and the Passamaquoddy was an eastern group of Malisat that lived in Maine and New Brunswick. All right, we got a New Brunswick in New Jersey too, right? Let's check this out, y'all. Check this out. Let me see something. All right, so this is the image right here, right? And it's funny because this kind of looks like this right here look like Latin, but this right here at the top look like French. Dupont. Do is the French term. Et is also a French term. This I believe this is French too. It looked like Latin. Maybe I could be mistaken, but somebody correct me. Right now, look, this is the image. Now it's a Tory and a patriot wrestle over Liberty Tree Bonner. It's a while the native watching. Now look, listen, now check this out. They saying that this is motherfucking native. That's a damn cracker. Okay, now look, if you look, he looked like he's kind of colored right here. This is would be a British. Well, I assume, yeah, this is a British. All right. Now, if you look at him, he looked dark. He looked darker than him, or unless that's the shadow. All right, but we want to get into this. All right, so it's an illustration to depict British and American struggle for land ownership in North America. Now, the funny thing is this, right? The thing that sent me through a loop is this, right? 50% of all precious metals that's found in America go straight to Queen Elizabeth. Number one. Number two, they also got to pay tithes to England, British, England and the British. All that shit is the same. London, all that shit is the same. They also have to pay tithes, America, right? That's the reason why they say that Queen Elizabeth. They say actually she bring in $327 million. They say a day from how much money she's supposed to have, and that's how much interest her money gains a day. You understand what I'm saying? Because all the taxes, most of the taxes, go to British. If they lost the war, why would they be paying them all these tithes? Why? Because they all connected in one. But what I'm thinking this. I'm thinking that what they did was they overthrew the black British. When they say black nobility, okay, they overthrew them and then put their own people in. This is these Europeans that you're seeing in now. Ah, now they know. I never heard nobody put a spin on it like that, but that's what I think what happened. The original Brits we know was Negroes or Moors or melanated complexion purse people. The same thing we felt, when we talk about the Moors, most people say that the Moors are from North Africa. North of Africa is Europe. Plain motherfucking blank. You understand what I'm saying? And North Africa is Europe. Put it like that. So I believe that they took over the land. They took over the like all them castles and all of the things in England and London. That they took that from the so-called black nobility, and then they put Europeans that look just like people over here in charge of that shit. Okay, that's what happened. All right, but check this out, right? Like I said, he looked dark skinned. This is not a. I'm gonna show you. They got other depictions of what they call the Aborigines looking like in this little so-called little passage. All right. So after the American revolution began and hostilities broke out, the Passamaquoddy allied themselves with the American early, early, early in the war, and the rest of the Massat tribe later joined them, but the tribe didn't participate in many battles, according to an article in the Passamaquoddy by Nicholas Smith or Cornell University website. All right, here's a little passage. It was considered a very great victory for the Americans, with several hundred Masset and a few Mi'kmaq joined the Passamaquoddy at Machias, Maine. The Indians retained their way of life, living together as was their custom, and hunting game for food. There was little actual fighting, but the Americans had the satisfaction of knowing that 700 Malisat would not join English forces. The biggest contribution was the spies going to Canada and returning with news of the English plans and attacking English coastal shipping. The Indians played a lead role in preventing an English attack of the Makaya, say by sea being successful. The story of young Indian who shot and killed the English officer of the land bridge. It's a result in the English retreat has become an important tradition tale among the Passamaquoddy. All right. Now, we're gonna read. It's a lot to read, so we're gonna run through this shit. All right. So on July 19th, 1976, the Malmac and Massey signed a treaty of Watertown. Which was a treaty of alliance and friendship signed between the two tribes and the United States on December 24th, 1776. General George Washington wrote the Passamaquoddy tribe a letter asking them to send him warriors. The Penobscot tribe and the Passamaquoddy responded by providing 600 warriors. In in August of 1777, Chief Francis Joseph Neptune of the Passamaquoddy tribe reported fired one of the first shots at the Battle of Machias, in Maine, hunting and killing a British officer standing on the deck of the British frigate Mermaid at the considerable distance. Uh, Now, like I said, look, we can do the legalese. We can pretty much break down all that. But listen, my thing is the history. This history right here is like what really is going to get people to really understand, man. Because once people really start finding out the history and find out that all these wars that was mostly in this country from the time of the first European coming here was pretty much among Aborigines, amongst other Aborigines, what you call basically the English, because the English are the people who claiming to be the Americans. But at the same token, like I just told you, the original English, the original Europeans was Negroes. The people who was running that shit over there was Negroes coming from Europe, coming from England. They were sending people over here. All right. So where we at? All right. So they say about the war, Massachusetts government continued to provide the Passamaquoddy with supplies and ammunition recognition of their service. See, look, they fighting each other. They say after the war ended, and I show people this in North Carolina, the Cherokee and the Yamasee. The Revolutionary War in the South was pretty much dealing with the Yamasee or whatever, and they show you that that was the Yamasee war. And they got images of fucking Negroes, and to this day, all them Africans like, yo, stop it. You understand what I'm saying? Now, this is in a whole totally different region, but let me continue, okay? So I say after the war, let's say 1783, Neptune worked continuously to prevent white encroachment on Indian lands in Maine. In 1796, Neptune and other tribal leaders secured the land treaty from the Massachusetts government that included 23,000 acres reservation near Perry, Maine. The Penobscot, a tribe with a population of a few hundred who lived in Maine, has been long-standing allies with the French during the earlier colonial war. Now, look, what is the about Maine? Because they came through that region. Now, listen, let me tell you something. Now, me myself, I've been doing this for a minute, so I can like a lot of these articles, I can pick out I can pick the meat and spit the bones out. So some of these things is going to throw you off as far as like they telling you they sold land, and it kind of like it's telling you that the white people, the white like all right, right here. Let's say after the war ended 1783, Neptune worked continuously to prevent white encroachment on Indian lands in Maine. But at the same token, they saying that these people, the Passamaquoddy, Is it the Passamaquoddy? I believe it's the Passamaquoddy. They saying that the Passamaquoddy or the Penobscot, they saying that they was the ones fighting with the Americans, but at the same token, now they trying to prevent them from encroaching on their land, which they eventually did. That's what I'm trying to say. Like when they tell you this Revolutionary War, the Revolutionary War was really about these Europeans coming over here taking the land from the Aborigines. That's all it was. But we touched on a lot of this in an earlier video I did, probably back in the summer. So if you want to check that out, go back. But this is pretty much going to touch on some other things. But when we hear about the first Revolutionary War, and when they talk about Crispus Attucks, that was in Massachusetts. Now I'm knee deep in this, and you don't hear nothing about them saying any African Americans helped them. You understand what I'm saying? Because they using us as Indian. Like you said, you got Negroes as starring as colored. You got colored starring as African Americans. Then you got Indians starring as Negroes. Then you also got Indians starring as Mongoloids and Europeans in some cases. But for the most part, they kind of confuse you because if you was to go back, right? Look at most of these southeast, northeast tribes. You're gonna find three things. Now you might find a few mongoloids because a few of these mongoloids that try to adapt themselves into a lot of these southeastern so-called tribes. But if you check, like I said, if you look at the Pequots, you look at the Pequots, look at the Wapanakis, look at most of these, like even the New York tribe, the Senecas, and the Mohegans, what's the other one? The Montauks, it's another one, the Shinnecox. When you look at all these people, you're gonna see white, mulattoes and black people, and then at the same token, they're gonna tell you, oh, the black people, or they because of the African. So how do the white people get it? So if the white man is not the Indian and the black man not the Indian, then they try to give you the mulatto looking people with the long hair or whatever. Say, oh no, they was mixed. You understand what I'm saying? But none of you notice none of these southeast tribes got any Asian features. Any Asian features. The European is not the Indian. You saying that the African is not the Indian or the black so-called melanated man is not the Indian? Then who is the original Indian? They hiding us in plain sight. All right, so let's keep it moving. All right, so we was right here when I was touching on the so-called French or the Frank or whatever you want to call them. All right, so it say the Penobscot never formally sided with the Americans. See, it say they never formally sided with the Americans during the Revolutionary War. It refused to commit the tribe as whole to the war effort by allowed some of their young men to enlist. Some of the Penobscot served as scouts for Washington Army. The Penobscot warriors. See, this is what I'm trying to say. They was using us against each other, man. They was using us against each other. That's why you hear a lot of times, man, when a lot of us say our people wasn't slaves. Look, look, we know what their mission statement was. Their mission statement was to come here and take the land. Okay. Now, unless you was the biggest, baddest Indian, which we was some big bad Indians, but at the same token, this European had a mission and he wasn't letting nothing stand in his way. That's why my understanding of it is you had people who was paying, you had Aborigines that was producing certain resources for these Europeans. They wasn't all slaves. You had people who was farmers, people who had other skills, and they was doing was working with these Europeans. The Europeans will leave them alone, but at the same token, they had powerless. They wasn't trying to fight. The ones that was fighting was the ones that was going to be shipped out of here and enslaved. All the other ones pretty much they allowed to pretty much like you know what I'm saying coexist as long as they gave up the fact of who they originally was. Okay, if that make any sense. All right, so let me keep it moving though. Alright, alright. So the warriors fought in numbers of campaigns during the war, including the American campaign against Quebec in 1775 and Job Scott expedition in 1779. In recognition for their service, the Peanut Squad was later awarded elevation at Indian Island, Old Town, Maine, around 1798. The the Abenaki, a tribe who lived in northern New York, New England, and southern parts of Canada, Maritimes, was divided on the issues of the Revolutionary War and fought in small engagements for both the British and the Americans, according to Calloway. Now let's check this out. So it's saying the Abenakis served in small scale operations on both sides during the war. But beneath the surface, confusion of ambivalence, all Abenakis at all times shared the goal of preserving their community and keeping the war at arm's length. All their disagreement was the means to that end. Neutrally, it say was the perilous strategy more likely to make the village a target than a haven when the British and American alike adhere to the notion that if Indians were not fighting for you, they will be fighting against you. Many Abenakis opted instead for limited and sometimes equivocal involvement in the conflict. The family band structure of Abenaki society meant that different people could espouse different damn, I can't get this word out. Alliances without tearing the community apart. Individuals participating on both sides through the limit and part of no master strategy also allow flexibility as the fortune of war shifted. The revolution would not leave the Abenaki alone, but they could divert into less destructive channels. Now, like I told you, now we still talking about the Revolutionary War. They ain't talking about no motherfucking African Americans. They still talking about all these Indians. If the war kicked off, it was first supposed to be a so-called African. They swear up and down, oh, Crispus Attucks, he was African American. He was the first man that got killed was a black man or whatever. And there's also some other things that's kind of weird. I was listening to a program one day, and one of these Europeans opened their mouth and said that Washington, the original George Washington, got killed in the Revolutionary War. Now that's some funny things that I've been finding out lately. As far as his wife, they said his wife owned slaves, and his wife, when she died, what she did was give all her slaves up. Right? I'm starting to think that this nigga wife was a Negro. You understand what I'm saying? Because when you read a lot of the Negro slave owners, you start to see that a lot of these people was family members, and you start seeing that a lot of them had the same mission statement. When they died, they released most of their people because you know what? If they was property to somebody, you know what would happen? Then the so-called colony would take over these so-called. Hold on. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry about that. Then these so-called colonies would take over the so-called property of these people. That's like abandonment. That's the same thing like with a house. If you have a house or property and you don't leave it to nobody or you don't leave it to a family member, the state comes in or the city comes in and take it. So a lot of times when you start hearing, because people saying George Washington wife owned slaves and George Washington didn't. But if you listen to the stories of Washington, you understand that he was taking land away from the so-called Indians. Him, Thomas Jefferson, Jackson, all of these so-called presidents of the so-called corporation, their mission statement was to get the land. Once the United States for in 1776, the mission statement of the United States was to basically take the land. They needed the land to keep the corporation going. That's why when they tell you the United States was first formed in Washington, the 10 by 10 so-called square box of Washington, D.C., and it didn't, it actually, people, you get certain conversations, people tell you, oh, well, Washington is still happened to be in the District of Columbia. Then other people say as the expansion, this is the reason why they started adding on to the states, because first it was 13 colonies, and then they start capturing other states and start naming other things, and before you know it became 50 states. You understand what I'm saying? But that's a whole nother story. Let's continue with this, because this is kind of interesting. I know it's a lot of reading or whatever, but like I said, I will break it down. You know, so we'll continue. So 77, the British recruited about 400 warriors from the Abenaki village of Adanak, and Bakanar, I can't pronounce some of this. I'm so sorry, y'all. Naga. It's a Kanaji, not Kanaji. Hey, that's how it look like it's pronounced. And St. Regis of and Lake of the Two Mountains into Bargone, Bargon camp. The disastrous campaign only strengthened Abenaki reluctance to support the British in the war, and many Abenaki began to take an anti-British stance. As a result, the Abenaki became more divided over the war. In 1781, American Colonel John Allen raised an Abenaki regiment in the Machias, say, which harassed British ships shipping along the Maine coast during the war. Meanwhile, the other Abenaki served with the British and raided the Maine and Droskagins valleys. I guess that's how it's pronounced. So it's right here, Droskagins. All right, say after the war ended, only about 1,000 Abenaki remained. With the American victory in the war, more and more white settlers began to encroach on Abenaki land. Various states began to buy up the Abenaki land. Now, you see that? Now, where is these people coming from? It say with the American victory in the war, more and more white settlers began to encroach. Now, they ain't fighting with the Americans. They fighting against them. Some of them fighting with British. Some of them claim to be fighting against Americans. And the only reason they're doing this to stop the people from encroaching. But where are the people coming from? When they say with the American victory in war, more and more white settlers begin to encroach. Where's the white settlers coming from? They coming from Europe. They coming from Europe. They coming from Europe. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's a lot of confusion, and it's a lot of things that's really unclear when you don't know about the history. When you look at Europe from how we look at it, that Europeans was all white. We don't look at it that prior to the 1800s, most of the kings and queens in Europe was black. We don't even look at it. When they show you all these pictures of antiquity and they try to make it seem like, oh, they went there and then no, they was always there. The Europeans we know, they was bought there. That's why if you go further down, man, if you go further down, like into like Turkey and like what we call North Africa, the Middle East and all of them Arabs, man, they are basically mulattoes, man, coming from out of the European, and these Moors messing with all these so-called Europeans, or having all these well, what we call them, brothels, or they call them harems, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And they created a whole group and a whole separate race of people. You know what I'm saying? But that's a whole nother story. Let's keep it moving, yo, because I could go on for days about this. Um, all right, so it say more and more white settlers begin to encroach on the Abenaki land. All right, so it say in the now remember that's the mission statement. The mission statement was to take the land, and part of taking the land was how you gonna be an Indian? How you gonna be an Indian if you don't have no land? You understand what I'm saying? Or if you no longer could be or live according to how we know Indians to be living, and you had to pretty much submit and work or find work or do these different various things to get research because the resources was the basically the food and the things that went along with the land that you survived off of. That was your resources. Now you don't have them resources. You forced to move in a different part or you forced to adapt these European ways because you basically didn't have a way to survive. That's all it was. They took the coast. You couldn't fish like that. So they moved. They was coming. No matter where you was at, they was coming. All right. So let's continue. All right, so it's saying in the first 10 years after the war, most of the Abenakis left the United States and settled in Canada. Now, it's saying in 18, now listen to this. In 1805, Canada awarded the Abenaki land for reservation. Now, check this out, right? In Canada, right? Remember, they sent the Maroons there around this time. Well, actually sent the Maroons there. No, they sent the Maroons there around 1800s, 1800s, around that time. You know what I'm saying? When the British really started really running through the Caribbean, whatever though. But they tell you now, the people in Sierra Leone, they ain't like, all right, you had so-called melanated or Aborigines that came from the Caribbean that was sent to Nova Scotia. Then you already had indigenous people that was in Nova Scotia already. All right, now how can we prove this? Let me see something real quick. Let me see something real quick. I got a picture. Let me find it. Let me find it. I got it. All right, this one right here. It's another one too. I'll find it when I run across it. But it take a long time sometimes to load up. More picture and shit. All right, that's this computer, y'all. My bad. Check this shit out, too, right? Well, see this? Halifax. This is in Canada. All right. It, um, pretty much the same shit on we've been you find consistent in the Americas. All right, same thing. So, all right, so all right, so it's saying animosity between the Abenaki and Americans continued into the 19th century, prompting many warriors to fight for the British in the War of 1812. The Mamak, also spelled I can't pronounce that. It's a tribe with a population of around 3,000 who lived in Canada Maritime, aligned themselves with the American during the Revolutionary War, hoping to overthrow the British and restore French rule to North America. In February 1776, George Washington wrote a letter to the Grand Chief of the Mamak tribe asking for assistance in war. All right, so it's several captains of the Mamak and three Mesquite captains responded and traveled to Watertown, Mass. On July 10th, 1776, Major Shaw bought these captains his sloop for Machia, Maine, and sell them. It's a mass where they continue to journey to Watertown in carriages provided by the military. On January 19th, 1776, the Mamak and the Mesquite signed a Treaty of Watertown, which was the Treaty of Alliance and Friendship. They say the Treaty of Alliance and Friendship signed between the two tribes and the United States. It say the earlier 1800, the Mi'kmaq was awarded land for a reservation in Canada and Maritime. All right, so let's continue. All right, so this is Stockbridge. Um, hold on, let me see something. All right, okay, all right. So, yes, the Stockbridge Mohegan tribe. The Stockbridge Mohegan, a tribe who lived in the western Massachusetts, sided with the Americans in the Revolutionary War, even though they had been long-standing allies of the British and even served in the militia unit during the King George War, the French and the Indian War of the Pontiac uprising. The decision to ally themselves with America are probably based on a number of factors, according to the article of Brian Renfletch. It say on the Journal of American Revolutionary website. Let me read a little bit of this. Say, while such a decision likely involved the magnitude of a fact. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm getting tired, man. Sorry about that. Let me start that again. So I say, well, such a decision likely involved a magnitude of fact. Doing it again, y'all. Of factors. They say one cannot get past the fact that the Mohegans were completely surrounded by a settler community known for its rebid of opposition to the Stamp Act, as well as for being a hotbed of activity for the Sons of Liberty. It would take no leap of imagination to believe that the Mohegans felt enormous pressure, if not the threat of intimidation of violence, to join the revolutionary movement. Yet the Stockbridge Mohegan also saw the revolution undoubtedly as an opportunity if they sided with the American rebels. Um, uh, um, Prove their loyalty, and new nations might respect and honor their attempt to reclaim their lost land and to protect their sovereignty. All right, y'all. Now check this out. Right now, it's saying now basically, I don't, I really don't know why a lot of these so-called tribes sided with the Americans. I guess they must, well, with the Europeans that was here that was claiming to be the Americans, because they calling them Americans when they know that these people are not Americans, because we know the 1828 definition of the word American mean, and we know that the European. So in 1828, it's saying the definition of American originally applied to the Aborigines or copper color races found here by Europeans, but now applies to all Europeans born in America. So we know at that point in time, what was the Europeans called? That's why I'm saying a lot of this shit smoke and mirrors, because they wasn't called Americans. So what was they called? What did they call them? What was they being called? They had to be called the British or whatever country that they came from. You understand what I'm saying? Because that's the difference, right? Them names is what differ. The British, you got England, and you got London. I never really did no research on where the word London came from, but I'm thinking that British or Brutish, or I'm assuming that them was the original inhabitants of that so-called land, or a group of, or maybe a tribe of Negroes or whatever you want to call them, a group of people or colony or whatever, but they had to be the first people. But a lot of these European, what was they being called? Wasn't the Americans? So what was they being called? Okay. All right. So basically, they saying that they to gain respect and honor so they can reclaim their lost land, protect their sovereignty. But we're going to see that the reason that they got shit taken because we see in the other paragraphs how they kept on bringing more. See, they use the word white, then they use the word England, then they use the word Americans, to where they kind of confusing you, just like they using all these different tribes, and you assume that these tribes are not us. So let's keep it moving. All right. So in April of 1774, the provincial Congress of Massachusetts sent a message to Chief Solomon. I can't pronounce that word. Wahamet. Wahamet. Look at this, y'all. Wahamet of Stockbridge nation, informing him of a possibility of a war with the British, and asked for continued friendly relations with his tribe. In response, Chief Solomon visited Boston and made a speech pledging the loyalty of his tribe. All right, now check this shit out, y'all. Here we go. So the Stockbridge Mohegan went to fight in some of the earliest battles of the war, and were repeatedly among the militiamen of Lexington and Concord in April of 1775, according to Rhineflint. Mohegan warriors are said to have lined up along the American militiamen along Battle Road and fire upon British soldiers, and they marched back to Boston, and then joined the militiamen in Cambridge as they besieged the British Army within Boston. Now look at this, right? Now look at the Indians. See this? Look at the Indians now. See that? Now this is let's say sacrifice invented by cruelty, engraved by dishonor. Illustration depict Lord Shelburne watching native slaughter loyalists in America. Okay, this is 1783. All right, so we see this. They say he watching them kill the so-called, but these are the same people because they dress the fucking same. You understand what I'm saying? But that's what I'm trying to tell you. Is a lot of funny business going on. But it pretty much was they was doing nothing but helping them and playing possum. So a lot of times that these Europeans, when this shit was going on, it was like they thought they was helping one with Europeans, but in all these motherfuckers was working together. That's how it looks to me. It looks to me like these Europeans was just sacrificing other Europeans so they could get in closer with the native and bring more people here. That's what it looks like to me. That's my interpretation of it. So it say during the 10-month long siege of Boston, the Stockbridge, um, the Stockbridge Mohegan helped build fortifications, patrol, and outer defensive, and even conducted ambushes on British forces. In addition to Stockbridge, Mohegan even fought in the Battle of Bunker Hill, during which a Mohegan Indian, Abraham I can't pronounce this, god damn it, it say was killed. Although George Washington was reluctant to allow the Stockbridge Mohegan to officially join the Continental Army, he eventually had a change of heart and allowed them to enlist. The regiment the regiment of Stockholm Mohegan participated in campaign of Valcour, Bay in October of 1776 and Saratoga Campaign 1777. They camped out at Valley Forge in the winter of 1777 through 1778, and also participated in a campaign against the Iroquois Confederacy known as Sullivan Expeditions. I mean, the Sullivan Expedition in 1779. The Stockbridge Mohegan was not sufficiently rewarded for their services, though through their no, I'm saying though and their families, and went home hungry, it's saying half naked, receiving no aid from the Continental Congress despite pleas on behalf of George Washington himself. In the meantime, white settlers continued to buy up native land in Stockbridge area, and by 1783, the Stockbridge Mohegans had lost their land. What the fuck I tell y'all? See, shit was like, this is all smoke and mirrors, y'all. This is all smoke and mirror. I think that the people here was acting like they wasn't part of them, and then they was killing. Yo, I mean, it's like you really gotta like really do some research on this, because it's not making no sense. If England sends the Europeans over here to take the land, but they telling you, oh, the Europeans basically said, nah, we not paying. Like I said, to this day, England still get ties from America. You can believe that shit if you want. That's the reason why every time Queen Elizabeth come here, they lay out the red carpet for her or her fucking sons, or Princess Diana's sons, or King Charles, so-called King Charles sons, or whatever. They lay out the red carpet for them. That's why the mulatto girl that's supposed to be married to him, or she's supposed to be the queen or princess, whatever. That's why they make such a big deal. If the British basically was fighting against the Americans, then why are they still friends to this day? Why are they still rolling out the red carpet? Why do they show them all this honor, respect, and why do they still pay them tithes and give them gold from this land? That's why they said it. I mean, I've heard stories that Fort Knox is empty because the Rothschilds supposed to have the gold. This is stories that I've heard, and I've heard stories that Queen Elizabeth owned more money than the Rothschild. They try to say that the Rothschild own more money than she do, but she controls the Rothschild, and she controls the Vatican. I mean, now if I'm wrong about that, somebody correct me. But according to my research, this is my assumption of what I think was going on. All right, so let's keep it going. All right, so it's saying 1780. The Stockbridge moved to New York to escape the encroachment by the white settlers in Massachusetts and live alongside the Oneida tribe. Okay, now this is why it's starting to get interesting. So say when the United States government started to buy up the Oneida land in the late 18th, they wasn't buying up no land; they was taking the fucking land. How you gonna sell somebody who got everything property? Or how you gonna hire somebody? What can you actually come to offer me that I'm gonna give up my motherfucking house? What you gonna offer me when my house provides everything that I need? It's nothing you could have that I'm gonna sell my shit for. Where I'm gonna go from there? You understand what I'm saying? So that's how you know that they was coming, and it was either using paperwork, or they was like using threat, duress, and coercion, and getting these people to assimilate and get them under their jurisdiction. Because that's all this shit is about, being under the United States. If you are standing on, like, let's say I'm standing here and you standing over there, and you trying to right here, I'm the Oneida tribe, and over there you the United States. Once you come over here where I'm at, now the United States government is going to be underneath my feet. So that means I'm gonna be under their jurisdiction in some way. You understand what I'm saying? And this is what was pretty much going on here, man. This is the reason. So what happened to all these people that gave up, that lost their home? What happened to these Indians? Where are they at now? Oh, they just died off? The fuck out of here. They became the Seneca tribe. These are the people who eventually like was living in Central Park, and until the Europeans came, they took Central Park from them. That's what I'm saying. Like the Europeans got a lot. Yo, let me continue, man. All right, so where was we at? I said when the United States government started to buy up the Oneida land in the late 1800s and the early 19th century, the Mohegan migrated to present-day Wisconsin. It said where they were later joined by a group of the Delaware people known as the Monsees. Finally, in 1794, the federal government signed the Treaty of Gia, it say with the Oneida and the Tuscarora and the Stockbridge and dog and I can't and thank I can't what the fuck is that? I've never even seen this word before, right? All right, thanked. That sound awkward. Thanked the tribes for their wartime services with a gift of 5,000 and a new church. Now listen, what Indians do you know that go to church? Anytime you see them giving them church, you already know that. Oh, that's them Negroes. Them Negroes, because what Indians you know that word some Christianity. Okay, now I'm running through this whole thing, still talking about the so-called Revolutionary War, but they still ain't mentioning no African Americans fighting since the first man who supposedly got killed in the Revolutionary War was Crispus Attucks. This is how you know that they lie on this history. They lie. They use your ignorance to pretty much to where they can write something to where you can't pretty much catch on. And like I said, listen, you got people out there who do genealogy, who do help you find your listen and listen. I love and light to them brothers and sisters who do that. Okay, I'm doing the history. Okay, and I can help you. I can help you pretty much with certain documents and certain literature as far as legalese and everything. But for the most part, my mission is to basically expose the fact that you had Negroes, these tribes, that these people who are no longer in existence, the descendants of these people, that these tribes that no longer existed are now classified as Negro and colored. That's it. That's it. Once people understand that, but that's pretty much the work that I'm here to do. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I can find some of these articles and probably give you my so-called interpretation of what I'm reading. But you see little things in it, like little clues telling you that these are fucking Negroes. You understand what I'm saying? Well, let me continue, all right? All right, so again, $5,000 in the church. They say a grist mill and sawmills and the instructions in how to operate them. Now check this out, mills. How many black people you know with the last name Mills? Where the fuck you think the Mills? Where you think the last word name Mills came from? Grist mills, sawmills, all of these mills. The mills are different things where they use to like you got sawdust mills, now they got salt mills. They got a lot of different things, but pretty much that's the where this last name derived from, or the surname derived from. All right, so now you got who lived in the Ohio River Valley, sided with the British during the Revolutionary War. Revolutionary War broke out. Most of Shawnees tried to remain neutral in early 1774. Around 170 Shawnee families moved away from the Scotto River Valley to avoid getting drawn into the war. American encroachment on Shawnee land persisted through, and the tribe soon became divided on the issues. Look, soon came through, and now they warm, now they beefing with each other because some people want to fight for them and some people don't want to fight for them. The Shawnee tribe that had already allied themselves with the British threatened over the Shawnee tribe with attacks if they sided with the colonists. See, it say after Chief Cornstalk was murdered by American militia in 1777, it drove many of the Shawnee to side with the British. Although a number of the Shawnee still tried to remain neutral, as concern over the American coachman land grew. More Shawnee sided with the British in the spring of 1778. All right, let's continue. Shawnee continued to flee into Ohio, and by 1779, 1778, and around 1,200 Shawnee, mostly from the Tawakilla, and the Kispooky, and the Pinquo division led by Yellow Hawk and Black Stump had left Ohio to begin to migrate west to Missouri. In May of 1779, American Colonel John Bowen launched an attack on the Shawnee town and Chillicothe during with Chief Blackfish was mortally wounded in 17 no 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 I'm sorry in the summer of 1780 when Virginia militia officer George Roger Clark invaded the area. The Shawnee burnt the Chillicothe themselves to prevent it from falling into Clark. In the fall of 1782, Clark returned to Shawnee territory, and according to Daniel Boone, who was involved in the expedition, Clark burned 5 villages and entirely destroyed their crops. See, this is what they was doing. This is what they was doing. Okay, it say just as it seemed the Shawnee was winning their war, the British lost the Revolutionary War and began trying to restrain the Shawnee warriors, urging them to make peace with the Americans as they themselves had done when they signed the Treaty of Paris. Now, the Treaty of Paris, this is dealing with the French, okay? This is dealing with the French. All right. Now, when I was reading about the Nash chat, this was kind of going into a little bit of that history or whatever. All right. It say and warned them that if they continue to fight with the Americans, then the British could have no part of it. The Shawnee and Americans continued to fight long after the war was over, as more and more white settlers began to encroach on Shawnee land, according to college. Let's see, you see what I'm saying? They both fighting Europeans, but at the same time, the Europeans are still encroaching on their land no matter what. You understand? So where do these people go and who these people become? All right, we're gonna continue, man, because this shit is long. So let's continue. It say for a time during the Revolutionary War, many Shawnee came to identify Britain cause of their own. It say and dwindling of British support hit them hard. They say, but the struggle that terminated for Redcoat and Patriots in 1783. It say did not end for the Shawnees. The Shawnees carried on the fight for another dozen years and took a leading role in an emerging multi-tribal confederacy. Now they fought them for another 12 joints. The Delaware tribe, also known as the Lenni Lenape, a tribe in the Ohio Valley, sided with the Americans during Revolutionary War and signed a treaty with the United States government. See, look, they signed a treaty with them. Look, they signed a treaty with them. You know what I'm saying? The Treaty of Fort Pitt in 1778. Then the funny thing is, a lot of these tribes signed treaties with them, but then they would later try to re-war with them as they find out that these motherfuckers is coming taking their land. And this is pretty much what you start and what you see throughout this whole passage or whatever. Like I said, I like to go over some of the stuff because, even though a lot of these don't be like scholarly websites and these old and school databases and all that type of stuff, A lot of these articles, you can at least get a understanding of what was the mood like and what was pretty much going on. Like I said, like you ain't gonna pretty, but trust and believe whoever wrote this article had to do some research to basically find all this body of work to put together, because it's a lengthy article, so a lot of this stuff has to have sources and has to be derived from someone who done primary research on this. All right, so let's continue. All right, so I say the Delaware originally neutral at the outbreak of the war, but quickly came under pressure from British and American agents and from other tribes, particularly the Wyandots in the north, who were pro-British. All right. After the death of Chief Castelago, and the Netawati, it say in the fall of 1776, the Delaware National Council found itself divided. Many Delaware chiefs argued that an alliance with the Americans was an opportunity to assert the tribe independence from the Six Nations and to challenge the Six Nation claims to the land west of Ohio. Now, see, look, see what they were trying to do, right? See, they was pretty much trying to cross their own people and side with the Europeans and use them as an ally to take shit from the others. See what I'm saying? And challenge the Six Nations. The Six Nations was their people. That's the problem. 1778, the United States signed its first treaty of Fort Pitt. It said with the Delaware tribe. The treaty allowed American troops to pass through Delaware territory. In addition, the Delaware argued to sell meat, corn, horses, and other supplies. Now, look, how did the Delaware have horses? Because they told you that the horses came from the European. So how is the Delaware? These are Indians. So how are they selling the fucking Europeans who they claim bought the horses over here? Horses. It had to be horses already here, which we already know it was. And other supplies. The United States allowed them to enlist in the U.S. Army. The treaty also stated that the Delaware could form their own state and have representatives in Congress if they wanted. See, that's bullshit. Represented in Congress. You see, a lot of these white chiefs allowed that to take place. The treaty created division with the tribe. Some Delaware chiefs had, such as White Eye and John Kilbuck of the Turtle Clan. See, of the Turtle Clan. Now, see that? It say continue to support the Americans, but other chiefs like Cap Pipe and the Wolf Clan moved his followers to Sandusky River in northwestern Ohio to be closer to the Wyandots and the British. All right. I think it froze up. No, it did. All right. They say after signing the treaty, Chief White Eyes died from smallpox. Yet many Delaware Indians and some historians believe he did not die of smallpox. Instead, he was murdered by an American militia group and then secretly burned. See, look what type of shit they was doing. See? Saying 1778. 1781, a force of about 300 Americans attacked the Delaware village on Canton, I can't pronounce some of this, Ohio, and neighboring villages, whatever this word is right here. It say during the attack, the Americans captured and killed 15 Delaware warriors and were accused of using excessive and cruelty in killing the captives. Look, they was using that shit back then. It say in 1782, a group of Pennsylvania militias incorrectly believed that Delaware was responsible for several recent raids and killed around 100 Christian Delaware. See, Christian Delaware. See, it's saying what became known as the whatever this is, the grind, the Grenade Houghton, the Grenadin Houghton massacre. After the American victory in the Revolutionary War, the Delaware struggled as Americans continued to move into native territory, while later forced to surrender most of the Ohio land with the Treaty of Green. Why would you be forced to surrender? Surrender means you lost. See, all of these treaties is after you losing. That's what these treaties is about. The treaties is so you will never attack them again, and they won't put people on your land. The same thing like when they tell you the treaties that they had against Japan or whatever. They the same shit. It's the same shit. Same shit. The treaties mean you lost. The treaties, how you gonna agree if I come into your house right now and tell you, man, look, man, you see that motherfucking pie on that table? I'm taking three-fourths of it. And I'm gonna leave you and your family with this 1/4, with this quarter. All right. I'm taking 3/4 of it though. And you can have this 1/4. And pretty much this is what they was doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, how you gonna make a treaty with somebody who ain't supposed to be on your land? You know what I'm saying? So in 1829, the United States forced the Delaware relinquish their remaining land in Ohio and move west of the Mississippi River. Hear this shit? My bad. That was my shit. Let's see. All right. So the Miami tribe. It say a great tribe in the Great Lakes region sided with the British during the Revolutionary War. In late October of 1780, the war came to the Miami when the French cavalry officer Augustin Martin LeBlanc, say who was aiding the Americans in war, raided a Miami village in Kikainga. Kikaing. I can't pronounce some of this shit, y'all. But this is, I guess, this is the name of it right here. All right. All right. So let me keep it moving. So after LeBlanc plundered the area for 12 days on November 5th, 1780, Chief Little Turtle attacked and killed Bob and 30 of his soldiers, bringing the fight to an end. After the British lost the war, the Miami tribe continued to fight the Americans. They say who began pouring into Ohio country between the years of 1883 and 1790. The Miami tribe killed 150 settlers. Okay, now where was these people pouring in from? If, like I said, where was they coming from? Where was the Europeans coming from, and where was they getting supplies and equipment to come over here? Because you couldn't just be no peasant and have a motherfucking ship that's gonna make it across the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Like, even when you read a lot of this stuff, you have to go back over and see what other information some of these articles read. I have read books on this shit, and it's all, and a lot of this stuff is different. Even though some of the stuff is consistent, but every time I read, it's like, and this is like, come on, y'all done read books in regards to different things according to whoever the author or the person who did the research to it. They all have different, they might go with the same narrative, but they all have a different twist or a different, you know what I'm saying, a different level of understanding according to how they display or how they want the reader to interpret, the information. All right, so it says this sparked a war between the Americans and the Miami tribe, the Miami War. It say which is also known as Little Turtle War. Now look, they go something I learned. I didn't know nothing about that. I'm about to write that down. I'm gonna look that war up. Little Turtle. Let me write that shit down real quick. Now I ran across, I did videos on the war, but I never heard this war right here, Little Turtle. Alright, let's continue. You know what? Let me give me a second. Let me go grab some water real quick. I'll be right back. All right. So let me take like a 2 minute break. Y'all still with me? Let me see. All right, y'all still with me? Peace. All right. So give me like 2 minutes. I'll be right back, y'all. All right, so I'm back. All right, where the fuck was I? Let's see. All right, I was right here. All right, so it say throughout the 19th century, the Miami could sign more treaties and could see it say more land, and the tribe eventually emigrated to Kansas in 1846 and were then removed to Oklahoma in 1867. See, a lot of them tribes, see, and you know another thing too. See, they rounded up other tribes and a lot of these Mongoloids, because a lot of them Mongoloids are the people who that's in a lot of the them territories out there in Oklahoma. Even though we know that Black Wall Street was inhabited by so-called Black Indians or whatever, they might have been certain people who went on that migration, but we know that the rest of our people stayed back or whatever, stayed back like in the South and everything. But I believe that a lot of the pictures that they show you, like in the late 1800s, that's from the so-called Negroes mixing with the Mongoloids that you see in, you know what I'm saying, that you see in a lot of them pictures. You know what I'm saying? That's the reason why you see identifiably black Indians in these pictures. You know what I'm saying? Straight black Indians. You know what I'm saying? Um, let's continue. All right, so the Wyandotte tribe. All right, so the Wyandotte tribe, the Huron, it's a tribe in the Great Lake region, sided with the British during the Revolutionary War. On May 18, 1782, American Colonel William Crawford led an expedition against the Wyandotte town in Upper Sandusky upon orders of George Washington to attack local Indians who had sided with the British. Crawford's army was defeated by the Wyandotte, captured Crawford and burnt him at the stake. It say the site of Crawford execution is now on the National Register of the historical places and monuments have been erected there in his memory. See that shit? See, they wasn't all taking no show. They captured that motherfucker and did him dirty. Damn. So after the war, the Wyandotte continued to fight the Americans who were coats on their land. It say they were a brief lull in the fighting from 1783 to 1785, and the United States Wyandotte, Delaware, Chippewa, Ottawa tribes signed the Treaty of Fort McIntosh in 1785. The fighting resumed shortly after though, when the white settlers ignored the treaty and continued to settle on Indian land. The Wyandotte eventually defeated by General Anthony Wayne at the Battle of Fallen Timber in 1794. It said the tribe surrendered most of their land in Ohio when they signed the Treaty of Greenfield, ceded even more land in the Treaty of Detroit in 1807. Now check this out. Now, when they signing all these treaties, taking the land, what are you think these people going? They are working for these fucking people who took their land. Okay, where are they moving to? They eventually stayed there. You know what I'm saying? That's the reason why you start seeing, like, so all of this land that was taken from the people of the land, where did they go? Where did they go? They didn't die, so where did they go? They eventually had to become part of whatever the Europeans was bringing to them. And that's what you got to pretty much understand. When they took the land from a lot of these people even stayed on their land and became servants for these motherfuckers, man. Straight up. Straight up. I mean, it is what it is. You understand what I'm saying? So the tribe surrendered most of their lands. I read that part. It said 1843. Uh, 1843, the Wyandotte was forcibly removed from the remaining land on reservations in Kansas. After the Civil War, Ohio Wyandotte were relocated to Oklahoma. All right. So the Iroquois Confederacy, known as the Six Nations, was an alliance of six tribes in New York, Canada, and the Mohawks, and Oneida and Tuscarora. It say the Onondagas and the Cayugas and the Senecas. All right, Senecas, eh? All right, so the Iroquois had been long-standing allies with the British. Yet, when the Revolutionary War broke out, the Confederacy split into when the Onondagas, the Cayugas, and the Seneca and the Mohawks sided with the British, while the Tuscarora and the Oneida sided with the American. In the earlier years of the war, many Iroquois towns in the Mohawk and the Susquehanna Valley was attacked by American troops. Retaliation for siding with the British. On March 6, 1779, George Washington stated a letter in Major General Horatio Gates to carry the war into the heart of the Six Nations and cut off their settlements, destroy their next year crop, and then and do no, it say and do them every other mischievous of which time and circumstances were. See, and they celebrate. This is a motherfucker who they celebrate. And this is the nigga who they celebrate. And like I told you, some funny things surrounding Washington. That's a whole nother bill of research or whatever, though. But this is the devil Washington they talk about doing this. You know what I'm saying? So on May 31st, 1779, Washington wrote a letter to Major General John Sullivan asking him to carry out these orders against the Iroquois nation. It said the expedition are appointed to command is to be directed against the hostile tribes of the Six Nations of Indians. It say with their associate and adherents. It say immediately objects are the total destruction and devastation of their settlements and capture as many prisoners of every age and sex as possible. Okay? That's what I'll read this shit just for that little part right there. Just for that little part right there, this is why I read this. Let's read that one more time. Okay. This is verbatim from George Washington. Okay. The immediate objects of the total destruction and devastation of the settlements and captured as many prisoners of every ages and sex as possible. It will be essential to ruin their crops now in the ground and prevent them from planting more. Washington went on to add that the natives indicate they want peace. They must earn it. Okay? They must earn it. Let's keep it moving. Let's say after thoroughly completed the destruction of their settlements, if the Indians should show a disposition for peace, I would have you to encourage it on conditions that they will give such decisive evidence of their sincerity, delivering up some of the principal instigators of their past hostility into our hands. See, look at this shit. Look, look. Read between the lines, okay? On the conditions that they will give such decisive evidence of their sincerity by delivering up some of the principal instigators. Some principal instigators. Who will be the principal instigators? Huh? The leaders, the people who directed you, the Nat Turners, the Malcolm X's, and all these other people, the principal instigators. Do you understand? Listen to this one more time. On the condition that they will give decisive evidence of their sincerity by delivering up the principal instigators of their past hostility into their hands. Butler, Brant, and most mischievous Tories that have joined them on any other they may have in their power that we are interested in getting into ours. Now look, you see, now look how greasy that sounded. Let's say the most mischievous of the Tories that have joined them or any other they may have in their power that we are interested to get into ours. Okay? Okay? And like I said, this will pretty much explain to you pretty much the situation that happened and what pretty much that they keep leaving out. Okay, because these people had to go somewhere. 1700s, you talking about this is in the 1790s. This is when the United States first was established. So you telling me people from there all the way until now, until you figure 1776 until 1976 or whatever, you think people would have forgot who they was at that point in time? All right, it just shows you. He say take as many people as many ages and sex as he can. Okay, now look, you now what did these people become? So real quick, real quick. All right, hold on, where was I at? Nonetheless, though, but the part that he was basically saying where he gonna take as many prisoners and shit or whatever. What do you think them prisoners? What name, last name you think them prisoners got? Washington. Okay, and this is what I'm trying to say, man. You got all these people out here, and they always say, "Well, that was only a small number of people that happened to." Nah, that was a small number of people. That was about six, let's say 6 to 10 million. That's where I think the rest of the people went to the Caribbean, as well as was sent to Europe and sent to certain parts of what we consider to be the continent of Africa and the countries with that's within it. So the spring American Colonel Goose and Shack raided the Onondaga settlement, destroying their crops and towns, slaughtering their livestock, and capturing 33 prisoners. In the fall of 1779, American General John Sullivan led his campaign of destruction known as the Sullivan Expedition in Iroquois County by burning 40 towns. Now look, 40 towns. You gotta research how many people resided within a town. They burnt 40 towns. I'm assuming that towns was like, you know how you see how they show you how they had these villages where they had like the sticks and shit surrounding the so-called like the little small huts or houses or whatever you want to call them that reside within them. But it's a 40 towns, 160,000 bushel of corn and vegetable. 160,000. That's a lot. General Daniel Boarhead and his 600 men attacked the western Iroquois town, burning and plundering the Seneca and the Muncie town on the Allegheny. The destruction of the Iroquois County country was so great that many Iroquois had to fled to Canada to subsist the British charity there. You see what I'm saying? See pretty much what was happening. So whoever is the people, the beneficiaries of this harm that was done to a person, this is when you start saying redress the grievances, etc. All right. So they say the tribes that did not side with the Americans, such as the only the Anita didn't fare much better because they suffer retaliation from pro-British tribes of the Confederacy. See? That's what I'm trying to say. With so much shit in the mix, they put by the Europeans coming and doing what they did. They put so much shit in the mix to where you had to deal with them. You had to deal with your own people, who they might have lost people as a result of you siding with them. Like I said, there's a lot of shit going on, man, and people don't have no clue to what the hell they be talking about when it comes to this history. I could tell you. The Oneida, a tribe of the Iroquois Confederacy who lived in western New York, originally tried to remain neutral during the early years of the war. But in 1775, they sided with Americans in the Tuscarora. It's also sided with the Americans, most likely due to their close relations with the Oneida. Some historians believe that the Oneida colonist alliance was due to the efforts of the Oneida Presbyterian missionary Samuel Kirkland, but other historians argue that it was more likely due to a series of factors, including a gradual European, it's Europeanization of the Oneida, strong ties between the Oneida and the colonists, and gradually weakened the Iroquois Confederacy. Now check this shit out, right? Now this is 1775. What do you think happened to them people who basically sided with these Europeans? What do you think happened to them? They didn't allow them to stay Indians. So when you start seeing Presbyterian missionary, we start talking about these people are Christianized at this point in time. Once they ain't Christianized, then they was all chummy with them, and they gave up basically who they originally were. Okay, so let's finish to include this shit. All right, so the decision of the Oneida to support the Americans split the Iroquois Confederacy, and eventually even split the Oneida tribe itself. See, look, so what happened to the resemblance of the Oneida tribe? And what did they look like? Was they white? No, we know they wasn't white. So what did they look like? It's after the war raged on opposite sides of the Confederacy began to turn on each other, according to Calloway. Pro-British warrior burnt Oneida crops and houses in revenge. Oneida retaliated by burning Mohawk homes. Oneida themselves split into a factions most supported by Americans, whereas the Kanyaga lent their weight to the crown, and the Onondagas struggled to maintain neutral until American troops burnt their home in 1779 for the Iroquois. The Revolutionary was a war in which some cases literally brother killed brother. Now listen, check this out. Now, so look, it says literally brother killed brother, right? So now, when all of this shit is happening, is when slavery starting to come along. Okay, because that shit prior to this, because that's you understand this, right? All right, let me get this correct. All right, so the first things we were seeing, like in Virginia, when they was fighting, and they was just like these was just colonies. Now with the creation of the United States, is when you start getting people, basically all these 13 colonies are connected, and they all got a pipeline of servants or people who participated in these wars against them. Now these people are prisoners to them, and these people are all now deemed slaves. If I'm not mistaken, y'all, because I'm just telling you at this point in time, because I have heard so many times through all of the research that slavery really became official at when the United States was established in 1778. Why was it established? Why was all the slavery? Because of all of the wars that they fought against the Indians, and they was capturing people, as well as the British too. They captured some British, the British too, but most of the people who they was capturing was fucking these so-called tribes that was rebelling against them. Okay, what did we just hear Washington say? These people that Washington captured that was prison. See, they not telling you that prisoners is another word for slave. The word prisoner and slave is used parallel. Understand what I'm saying? They might have the similar destinations, because even a prisoner eventually, a slave a little bit more regarded than a prisoner in some form. You understand what I'm saying? Because a prisoner can't be trusted. A slave is pretty much just a slave. A slave ain't rebelling. He going with the flow. A prisoner is someone who probably was an opposition prior to you capturing him. Okay, so let's continue this. All right, so let's say now look. It said American towns burnt. I mean, American troops burnt down towns in 1779 for the Iroquois. The revolution was a war in which some cases literally brother killed brother. Okay. Now, the whole time we mention all this Revolutionary War, they ain't saying, oh, the Africans sided with them. They not saying nothing. How the fuck was Crispus Attucks? How the fuck was he running around free in 17 before this happened when they tell you all this slave shit? Because like I said, now now this is just another way to look at it. Even after they warred against the Pequots and everything, and a lot of the so-called tribes, some of them wasn't colonized, some of them still was maintaining to be certain tribes. But the more and more European expansion came out is when they really started to lose their tribal inheritance. So what happened to these people? What, like I said, all you gotta do is look. All you gotta do is look at the population. What happened to these people? These people are now classified as Africans. That's it. That's it. That's plain and fucking simple, man. It's plain and simple. So Donita went on to fight in several key battles in the war, including the Battle of Oriskany and Saratoga. It's a and their support was considered a crucial factor in preventing an early American defeat in New York State and in the war in general. See, now listen, check this out, right? Like I said earlier, right? They trying to call the Europeans Americans when they know that the Europeans was not called Americans until after 1828. Okay, they trying to say in 1700s that these Europeans are Americans because they don't want to pretty much say that the European, that these so-called Americans are really British people that were sent over here. You understand what I'm saying? That's why I say a lot of this stuff is confusing. It's confusing to the person if you don't pretty much understand what was the main, what was the British coming here for? The British was coming here for the fucking land too. So the British just came here for nothing and just was gonna be nice to nice to the Indians. So the British just came here for nothing, and they just came here and they just was nice to the Indians for nothing. Fuck out of here. All of these niggas was connected. And what they did was they just lured more so-called Aborigines in to agree with them. And once they agree with them, you see the Americans kept on bringing people. People kept coming. Where was these people coming from? Because America's here. So where was the people who claimed to be American or Europeans? Where was these Europeans that kept coming here that was encroaching on these Indian territory? Where was they coming from? They was coming from fucking Europe. You understand what I'm saying? So, like, the first time I looked at it, I knew pretty much it was the Revolutionary War was basically to take the land because we know with the Yamasee, a lot of people say it was the Yamasee War or whatever, but this was in different parts of the so-called country. You know what I'm saying? They was fighting in Massachusetts, they was fighting in Virginia, they was fighting in a couple of different places. Now, how was all these people revolting when you supposed to have all these millions of slaves at this point in time? So in 1778 or whatever, you had all these so-called slaves. But in 1778, if you look, in 1790, according to the enumerations that we got, they only had 700. They had 757,000. Yo, that's why all this shit is making fucking sense, yo. Now I'm starting to really understand this, right? Look, all right, they wasn't really capturing slaves until after, because the Europeans did not have their full establishment here until after 1776, until after the United States. They united the states to take over the land. That's what the whole thing was. They united each other to take over the full overall land, because they trying to say that the white settlers are part of the United States. So where the white settlers at? Who the white settlers? fuck out of here. And then this is the reason why, even when you look at the census in 1790, right? That 1790 is 14 years after the United States, 1776 or whatever, right? That's 14 years after, right? So in 1790, on the so-called census, there's only 700, no, there's 700,000, 757,000 so-called slaves, okay? At that point in time, there's 700,000, 50, I mean, somewhat. And then also you got freemen, right? So where these freemen came from? These freemen was the motherfuckers who were fighting against the other Indians and against the British. This is how they became free, because they won the so-called they won the European friendship, so they awarded them they awarded they basically called them freemen, but they wasn't enslaved to begin with, even at that point in time, because their whole thing was they didn't start encroaching on the land because they was just small independent so-called colonies. At first when they came here, they wasn't united. All the colonies was not connected until 1776. You get it? And then that's the reason why when you start seeing this is the now you start seeing, when you start looking on the so-called census, right? Why after that the numbers start going up, because now they formed, they united. So now they coming against all of these so-called tribes, encroaching on all of them. As a result to that, they are encroaching on the land, and the people of the land have to come into some type of jurisdiction or some type of contract with them to be able to survive. This is the reason why you start seeing more and more people being enumerated. It's not because of people being brought over here, or it's not even because of these are all so-called because even when you look at the slave, the you would think of, if they take this land from these people, right? These people will be still on their land, and these people will be servants to them. That's the way you have to really look at it, because where the fuck would they go? Where would they go? Each of these so-called Indian lands, there was resources on it for them to live. It had the water, like you said, crops, all of that shit was coming to, because even if, like I said, like discussion I had the Aborigine earlier, we was talking about, pretty much you had to live next to the water, because you can't bring water to a whole tribe of people. So you have to be somewhere where it had to be fresh water, or you had to have some type of irrigation system, or some type of what they call well, or aqueduct, or something, to where you was bringing water in. And this is common sense. So a lot of these people, all they knew was to live along the river and live along these certain places or whatever. So eventually they pretty much became submissive to these so-called Europeans, or the so-called United States, after they took over their land. So we're gonna continue, and I'm gonna conclude with this. All right, so so on Saratoga, saying support was consideration a crucial factor in preventing American defeat in the New York State and the war in general. On October 22nd, 1784, it's a Fort Stanwix treaty formally brought the fight in between the American and Iroquois Confederacy to an end. The treaty awarded peace and government protection to the Seneca, Mohawk, the Onondaga, and the Kayaga. It say and the following on the following condition. Now listen to these conditions, y'all. Hold up. Check this shit out. Listen to this. 6 hostages shall be immediately delivered to the commissioner by the tribe until all the prisoners taken by the tribe are returned. Oneida and the Tuscarora shall be secure in the possession of the land on which they are settled. Boundaries nation's land should be clearly drawn in the area indicated in the treaty. The commissioner, of the United States will order goods to be delivered to 6 nations for their use. Now, listen, I'm gonna tell y'all something. Like, look, you use your brain, okay? You think for yourself. I'm not trying to tell nobody how to think, but wouldn't you think a lot of people who still, because it's telling you that they allow certain of these tribes to remain tribes. Like say the Oneida and the Tuscarora shall be secured in possession of the land in which they settled. Okay, so they allow some of these people to be tried. That's why a lot of these people became Masons, man. Because even when you look up, like I said, Albert Pike created the Masons. I mean, well, he ain't create. He might not created the total overall Masons as we know it, but the new Masons that was founded here when the KKK and all that shit was established, he had a large majority of input on that. Also, he was supposed to be some type of attorney for the so-called um 6 nations. The fuck was that? Not bad, y'all. All right, so let me keep it reading. All right, so all right, shit, something flying around in here, man. It's too cold for a bug to be. The hell is that? Oh, my bad, y'all. I'm saying shit, man. All right, so the boundary for the 6 nation land should be clearly drawn in the area indicated in the treaty. The commissioner of the United States will order goods to be delivered to the 6 nations for their use. Now, see what I'm saying? They went from having their own shit, living free, to now you a damn customer. You see how this shit flip? That's the reason why I read a lot of these articles to get a good understanding, because you can always learn something from one of these articles according to what was going on, to pretty much prove our point of what we automatically thought to begin with. Okay, so on December 2nd in 1794, the Oneida. Now check this out. Now remember, check this out. Now look, at this point in time, right? This is in 1794, okay? At this point in time, we still got all this so-called Indian movement and all mission of Indians, even at this motherfucking point in time, right? Now they tell you they took in prisoners and everything. So where are these people at on the fucking census? It's not even one Indian on the serious. There's not one Indian on the census until 1860, 1870. Okay, we're in 1794, and you're getting a lot of mention of a lot of tribes that was supposed to be in the Massachusetts region or Maine or up like what we call northeast of North America. Okay, why are none of these people being classified on any of these census? Okay, why? That's what I'm trying to tell you. And even you right now, you get all of this so-called mention of Washington at this point in time. So Washington didn't have none of these Indian slaves. All his slaves was Africans. Or if you assume or you think that Africans came in, that's why I say you gotta really break this shit down. You have to really study. It ain't just, no one person has all of the answers to none of this stuff or whatever. Even when you do find out what tribe you came from, you still gonna want to know the history, because a lot of these so-called tribes, they got their own independent history. And like I said, a lot of these people who later on is really, what I'm saying, identifying as a lot of these tribes, a lot of these people just really assimilated and really started to form these tribes within the last 30 years. Some of these tribes might have lasted. Some people might know that they was part of some of these tribes and they might have some type of culture, but for the most part, a lot of people had to go back, look up what their family was teaching them, look up and, what I'm saying, and try to find bits and pieces of the culture that they had prior to we being colonized by the Europeans. Now remember, check this out. So in addition Hold on, let me see something. Oh, all right, now I'm back up at the top right here. So it said, all right, so the Anita wartime service was formally recognized by the U.S. Congress with the Treaty of Gaia. It's a document signed by President George Washington that affirmed the tribe right to their oversee their affairs and land without interference from the government. Now, remember, the Oneida tribe actually helped George Washington, and you see what you see now. We know why. Why you think they kept their land? Why you think? Because everywhere we read it, oh, the Europeans encroaching among these people land. So how did these people kept their land? Because they had the protection of the government. So you can't tell me some of these people who still connected to some of these tribes, their family wasn't selling people out, yo. And I'm not saying everybody, but some of them obviously had to be. Some of them obviously had to be because the mission statement, what do we see? Oh, the European encroachment on the land. So it was no land that was safe. No one was a damn a 20-foot giant to where they can pretty much like tell the European, get the fuck out of here. We're not giving you nothing. And the European just gonna walk away with their head down and keep it moving and never come back. No, that ain't happen. I don't care how tough people think their family was or how much people like, oh man, well, everybody wasn't slaves. I know, yeah, I done heard it all. I done heard it all. And I'm not saying everybody was slaves. The ones that wasn't slaves gotta really be looked at. You gotta really start saying, well, hold up. We had to give up some type of jurisdiction to them for these people to leave us alone. We had to. We had to because it was either that or they was killing you. And we know that most of the men they were sending out and they was saving a lot of the men, sending a lot of them out to the West Indies or whatever. Like I said, I mean, it's pretty much you know what I'm saying. You should pretty much have an idea of what was going on. All right, so it's saying in addition to the Oneida and the Tuscaroras, it's and the Stockbridge Indians were promised a new church. Yeah, another new church. See, another new. This is in 1794. How many Christian Indians do you see walking around? How many churches can you go to in Massachusetts and they're in Native American churches, yo? How many or people in there that resemble Native Americans that we see the identity we get of these Native Americans? You ain't gonna find none. They all Negro churches. Okay. Now look, that's what they gave them. Now look, it say we're promised a new church. When did you know Christians would be celebrating church? Because you know another thing too. I'm gonna tell you like this, right? The reason why they gave a lot of us because a church ain't nothing but a temple. Ain't nothing but another form of a temple in the sense of it. That's a temple in a sense or whatever. And, they already knew we had temple, we had these so-called establishments, what they consider to be church. All right. So it's say in addition to the grid mill and the sawed mill and instructions in how to operate them. See, look, the tribes in return promised the I mean, I can't get the word out. It say all other claims for compensation and reward. All right, relinquish all other claims for compensation and reward. All right, now look, they pretty much just gave up everything and they was giving them mills. Now, like I said, these last names, mills, are surnames. They wasn't surnames because someone just gave you the last name Mill. They gave you the last name Mill because of these so-called factories or these places right here, these work facilities, or where they produce different like we said sawmill. And I don't know what exactly grist is or whatever, but I could just imagine that it's something that's going to be put into production or some type of um some type of substance that's going to be put into production. All right. So it states to relinquish all other claims and rewards. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna try to finish this shit out. Let me see how much further I gotta go. That shit long, that motherfucker, yo. Alright, you know what? Let me see something. You know what? Fuck it, let's keep on going. I'm gonna keep on going till I get tired. Cause I wanted to show y'all this. Look at the Indians. Look, this is what I wanted to show y'all. Look at the Indians. So I'm gonna move up a little bit more. I'm gonna probably rock out for about 15 more minutes. And I'm gonna stop it, and then I'll make a part two of this because it was pretty interesting. I got another article up there that I really wanted to use too. That I'm probably gonna add to this when I do it. All right, so you know what? I'm gonna stop right here I'm gonna stop right here because I ain't gonna get tired. So I'm gonna stop right here, and I will finish this up. I'll finish it up probably tomorrow night. Um, but yeah, I had a couple of different other articles up here that I really wanted to get out. But I just wanted to show y'all pretty much like this image right here, the image that I showed y'all before at the top, and this image right here. See this? These is Negroes. Because look, now like I said, listen. Take a look at these so-called Indians here. Do they look anything like the Indians that they show you? They look nothing like them. Did all right, them right there, as well as the one up here at the top right here. If I can find it. Oh, this one. This one right here. Look. See this? Look. These is Negroes, man. We can just like I said, these people are way more darker than these so-called Europeans or whatever. And like I said, and like they put little images in like that, and then we people would argue you down because they looking at it from what they think an African look like. But like we even said, Africa got many different faces over there in that continent. Um, but yeah, yo, I'm about to get out of here. I gotta get up early in the morning, yo. So appreciate everybody for coming through. Like I said, I just just touch on this. Wasn't planning on doing no video because the conversation I had earlier, me and the Aborigine pretty much question was asked when the next time I was gonna do a video. I actually ran across this article. I came in the house and did some research. I was looking up some few things, and I felt like this was kind of interesting. I could make some points off of this. So, but just like I said, man, like I said, they POWs and all these wars where it was encroachment. You had got to look at it after the 1776. Prior to 1776, everybody here was not no like no slave, or it wasn't even like a situation set up like that. Most of these plantations was operated by Aboriginal people or the people of the land. They was not operated by any African because the Europeans, their motherfucking self, could not come here and operate the land. They needed Aborigines to help them. So, like I said, that's why from that time on. Now check this out, right? When I'm starting to think now is like when I was just reading that out, right? So now you saying that in around 1774 and around that time is when they was already fighting a lot of these people. And so by 1790, when you start seeing an enumeration process occur, that means a lot of these people are different prisoners of war as a result of the Revolutionary War. So excuse me, y'all. So what happened to all them people from the Revolutionary War that was captured? What happened to all them? What happened to all them people? And like I said, so the whole time, so listen, Think of it like this. Think of it like this, right? All right. The Revolutionary War, and what I was just reading, you see, was back in around like the 1774. They're clearly Indians telling you that they captured POWs of these Indians, right? Now let's put that right there. All right, we know that they captured some of these Indians. We know that. This is 1774. We know at that point in time, all them tribes I ran down, they telling you that they was capturing Indians, right? So why 1790 ain't none of them classified as Indians? It's only black and white on it. That's how the fuck I know that all of us are Indians. That's how I know. Because, like I said, so some of them people who was captured as a result of the Revolutionary War from these different Indians that was fighting, they classifying them as black because they not classifying them as Indians. And it's the reason why you see a lot of these people pop up. Because I'm thinking back prior to that, that it wasn't even the plantations with people who was working indentured servants. That slavery shit didn't become until they united the so-called states, and a lot of this stuff started to come into play as opposed to then. That's why a lot of people say that 85 or say that slavery, chattel slavery, was only 85 years from, they say, from 1770, from 17, hold up, what they say, from 1776 until 1776 until, yeah, 1776 until, they say, until 1861, because they say that the revolutionary, no, the Civil War started in 1861. Around that time, they said the official time started for the for the Civil War was 1861. All right, so now, like I said, so in between that, that's 85 years. So 85 years in between all that, you had all this shit going on. But prior to that, that's the reason why you see a lot of so-called aborigines that will still walk around at that point in time. Like, because it's kind of complicated to really explain, but I'm gonna sit down one day and I'm gonna really, like, all of the information I got, I'm just gonna come up with a pretty much a theory, man, of what I believe happened. Because, like I said, in 1774, they clearly telling you that they warring with all these different Indians. So you got the Indians who side with the British, as well as you got Indians that side with the American. They telling you, the Americans knew, or the Europeans that's we claim to think that is Americans. They telling you that they knew that it was these certain tribes that was warring, that was fighting with the British, and what they was doing was going and retaliating against them, burning down their village. You say burnt down 40 towns and 160,000 crops. That's a lot of shit, man. That's a lot of shit. That's a lot of shit, fam. Okay? Now they telling you they burn all this stuff down, burn all these towns down. So what happened to, or how many, 40 towns? How many towns? How many people was that? How many towns could fit in 40? How many people could fit in 40 towns? Let's say I don't even want to start guessing how many people was in one town. But it just said right there they burnt down 40 towns. Where the fuck did these people go that they burnt down these 40 towns? And did they take these people in bondage? Did they just get away? No, they ain't just get away. George Washington himself in this article said it capture as many and take as many prisoners from whatever ages and sex as you want to. Okay? So them people eventually probably took on the last name Washington after time. So, like I said, man, I'm about to get up out of here, but definitely, man, like I said, man, sometimes you gotta touch on the stuff because it just, it goes on and on and on as far as this history. And we can never get enough of this history because after studying African history for the last 30 years, 20 years, or 30 some odd years or whatever, most of us, we only been on this so-called information about us being Aborigines. The majority of people, I'm gonna give them at least 3 years. But some people, like majority of people, that's around. Some of them just found out this year. Some found out last year. Some found out the year before. And some of them, when they did recognize that we was from here, they said, "Damn, you know what? My aunt used to always say we was Indian. My grandmother used to always say we was Indian. My grandfather, my uncle, they all, most, a lot of people got some type of Indian story in their fucking family." Okay. So like I said, I'm gonna stop this video here. But for the most part, man, if you think about it, if you look at like what I said, just think of it like I'm gonna break it down one more time before I go. We read that they was warring with these people around when the Revolutionary War started, right? They said the Revolutionary War started over Crispus Attucks. I just read all this shit up here. None of this shit mentioned anything about any. It ain't mentioned nothing about any African Americans that fought alongside with any of these Indians. They just telling you about Indian tribes, and then they telling you that they took prisoners of Indian tribe. They telling you that they was burnt down 40 towns, man. In one case, they burnt down 40 towns. How many people was in them 40 towns? And we got Washington saying in this same article, captured as many prisoners and as and from whatever age is possible and whatever sex is possible. This is what George Washington said. So what happened to them people who was captured and taken as prisoners, along with the people who had their villages and their towns burned down? What happened to these people eventually? All right. So, like I said, man, at the end of the day, we only been studying this stuff for the last, I'm gonna say, for like me, I've been studying it. Mm, I'm gonna say about 7, 8 years. So I've been really on this for about 7, 8 years or whatever. And in that 7, 8 years, I found out. I mean, I was dealing with a little bit like of the more science probably since like 2000 and around 2009, 2008 or whatever. I came into contact with this through people kept saying that we was already hit. That's how I came into contact with this or whatever. But like I said, like as far as studying this and getting a good observation and starting to understand this, it's still like I learned the bulk of my information within the last 4 years. Okay, yeah, you have people who was raised upon this, but like I said, if you look, you know why a lot of people still remember what tribes they came from. So you already know who's who, and that's not in all cases because I know it's gonna be people. I know it's brothers up here who connected to their tribe, and they know certain things or whatever. But for the most part, a lot of these so-called tribes that was left alone by the government or whatever and everything, we know why. And we going, like I said, tomorrow we gonna conclude it though. But for the most part, let me get up out of here, man. I gotta get up, go to work morning, and definitely if you like to donate, the link is in the description. Shout out to everybody who sent donations and everything. I appreciate everybody who went to the T-shirt Spring app and copped themselves a T-shirt. Appreciate you. Like I said, if you like to donate, the links is in the description for Culture Freedom, Hidden Cultures of America, Black Indians. So with that being said, love and light. Peace to all the Aborigines. I'm out of here, y'all. Peace.